Hello, humanists. Welcome back to our weekly humanist exploration deep dive. Today is Easter. Initially, this is going to look at a commonly seen thing about joking about and seeing parallels in the Gospels, seeing discrepancies between the Gospels, and talking about how Easter comes from various traditions that came before and has influenced traditions after the story of the canonical and synoptic Gospels. In the process of putting this together, in the process of putting this together, I just moved into a new place and people are talking right outside my door. So if you hear anything, that's what it is. In the process of putting this together, I did something I've never done before. I participated in Bible studies. I participated in reading critique, scholarly critique, and popular critique of the Gospels, of the Old Testament, of the epistles, of the New Testament. I've read commentaries on Christian history. I have a degree in religious studies from UC Irvine, all of this. But the one thing I've never deigned myself to do is to actually sit down and read the Bible cover to cover, or at least a full book. Never did that. It never truly interested me. And I thought, I'm a fast reader. I can go through this text. I can read through it quickly. I can glean some information and think about, some possible themes that might often get overlooked. And in the process of this, I I discovered something that I didn't think that would happen. We often see the quote unquote halo effect from people who really, really like something because other people like it. That a lot of excuse is given to acts or material that is just overwhelmingly noxious and awful just because it's popular and it's not receiving the type of scrutiny that we would otherwise expect other sources to endure because it's so celebrated or because it's sacred. I started reading the book of Matthew last night. Usually I'm a fast reader and I could typically get through something like this relatively quick. But unfortunately, I couldn't do that. I started looking at this and certain things stuck out to me. Today, we're going to have a discussion. We have some wonderful people on our Zoom meeting. We have a small but mighty crowd today. We are just starting our Sunday meetings again, so the crowd will pick up. But the people here are interesting, they're thoughtful, and I'm going to pose some ideas that I've never really heard discussed before. Maybe they have been discussed, but this is something that I think we should talk about. The lens through which I'm going to look at, and we're going to examine the book of Matthew today, is through the lens of history, through the lens of philosophy, through the lens of morals and ethics and the study of moral philosophy. We're going to look at the narrative of Yeshua of Nazareth through a critical eye through these particular lenses. And with this, I have to say that I personally have been looking at trauma informed therapy. If you had a youth, a childhood, an infancy that was marked by physical, sexual, or emotional abuse or neglect, there might be certain patterns that might come up that you might not notice, but you might have a lot of chaos in your life. I am not a mental health professional. You'll have to talk to someone else for that. That's not in my wheelhouse. But I myself have been pursuing this because I had a rather neglectful and disruptive childhood that has led me to look up codependence, has led me to look up trauma informed therapy, has led me to look up narcissism and generational patterns of trauma and abuse. I've been a public speaker. I've been an adjunct professor, and I have been a humanist activist and advocate for the last 20 years. As I've been going over the book of Matthew, certain things stuck out to me. And as I go through, we're going to look at this. We're not going to complete it, but we're going to start an exploration. I've made comments and I'm going to share them as we go on. And if you have comments, please make them, if you're watching this later, please add commentary on some kind of stream at the bottom of your screen. And here we go. We're going to look at the book of Matthew. We have some interesting people here today. Some people are former Christians, some are not. We have Carrie, Eric, Mather, Seamus, and Justin. Justin was studying to go into clergy, so he's going to have some really interesting perspectives. We're going to have a really great discussion with Justin. I'm really happy that Justin's here. And without further ado, here we go. We're going to look at the Bible. We're going to look at the book of Matthew, and we're going to see what we think about it. I want you to suspend any sense of allegiance you have to the text. I would like you to try to suspend any affiliation with Christianity and Christian bias in your mind. I want you to look at this through fresh eyes, unfettered, through a lens of history, through a lens of culture, through a lens of society that might have given a particular essence to this work that we're about to talk about. I want you to pretend you've never heard of Christianity. I would like you to pretend you've never heard of Jesus of Nazareth, because the book of Matthew might be the first of the synoptic and canonical gospels. It was not the first that was written. The first that was written of the canonical gospels was the book of Mark. It's called the Markan Priority because it's so similar. And of course, this work was created specifically to bolster the faith and confidence of the believers in this whole enterprise. Welcome to the chat. We're gonna have a little fun. I'm gonna share my screen and let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. Happy Easter, everyone. So for Easter, my Easter gift to you is we're gonna tear apart the book of Matthew. Maybe we'll do the book of John later. Okay, here we are. Cool. All right. Now here we go. Bloop. And then a quiz was shared as well. We might go over that later. What strikes me from this is if you've read The Age of Reason by Thomas Paine, you'll know that Paine is a deist and he goes over the Bible. He goes over the Old Testament, he goes over the New Testament. He receives criticism. His criticism comes from being told, you're not correct about what you're saying. You don't even really quote chapter and verse. You're just going on with your opinion. So what Thomas Paine said, and here's from Age of Reason, Volume 2, the preface. I have mentioned in the former part of the Age of Reason that it had long been my intention to publish my thoughts upon religion, but that I had originally reserved it to a later period in life, intending that it be the last work I should undertake. The circumstances, however, which existed in France, and he goes on, it's the French Revolution's happening. Under these disadvantages, I began the former part of the Age of Reason. I had besides neither Bible nor Testament. It must be borne in mind that throughout the work, oh yeah, so that's a note to refer to, though I was writing against both, nor could I procure any, notwithstanding I have procured a work that no Bible believer through, although writing at his ease and with a library of church books about him, can refute. Towards the latter end of December of that year, a motion was made and carried to exclude foreigners from the convention, yada, 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 conceiving that, and he goes on and on and on. But effectively, he talks about, I have been at liberty, several publications written, some in America, some in England, as to answers the former part of Age of Reason. If the authors of these can amuse themselves by so doing, I shall not interrupt them. But effectively, he says, they will now find that I have furnished myself with a Bible and Testament, and I can say that I have found them to be much worse books than I had conceived. If I had erred in anything in the former part of the Age of Reason, it has been by speaking better of some parts than they have deserved. I observe that all my opponents resort more or less to what they call scriptural evidence and Bible authority to help them out. They are so little masters of the subject as to confound a dispute about authenticity with a dispute about doctrines. I will, however, put them right. that if they should be disposed to write any more, they will know how to begin. Thomas Paine, October 1795. Of course, that was 230 years ago. Here we go. And anyone who has comments as we're going through this, please stop me. These are just my thoughts. And I'm thinking about making a book about this. I think it bears further investigation and evaluation. And before I go into the Bible, really quick, for everyone here, who here has actually read the book of Matthew?
I have.
I have.
Not me.
So
It's been
Eric,
a
just
while.
yeah. So when did you last? How old were you when you last read the book of Matthew?
I've never read it, so I've only read parts of it. And the parts that I only know of are because I play Messiah almost every year. And Messiah, that's where, truthfully, this is where much of my Bible and Christian education comes from, is hearing those excerpts. I admit they're just excerpts that are used in Handel's Messiah. And of course, they only use the best part. They don't use the contradictory parts.
And he shall be wonderful, called Wonderful Counselor.
Yes. Prince of
Carrie,
Peace.
Carrie, what were your thoughts when you read Matthew way back when?
Oh God, I probably was in my 20s or 30s, so I really couldn't say. And I thought really all of the first four books in the Second Testament
Mhm.
are really quite similar.
Yes.
Because they're all telling the same story, basically. So I
What
can't.
about your
What?
what about you, Mather?
I last read it about 10 years ago, and I read it several times when I was younger and being raised as a fundamentalist. Um, and I think it's important to read at least Matthew, Mark, and Luke together because they're called the Synoptic Gospels, and they claim to represent the same story. I think a lot of scholars say that they're based on Mark. And then John is also more loosely based on, it goes together. So, and a lot of Christians think that they are telling the same story and should be consistent. So, if you want to point out inconsistencies, you don't want to read just one at a time.
Justin, what about yourself?
Thanks. I read it repeatedly in high school and in my early 20s, and that's all I can say. I read it over and over again, different parts of the Bible. But then when I was around 21, I decided to read through the whole Bible. But before that, I had read certain parts like over and over again.
Well, let's go through this. Like I said, let's not look at this through a Christian lens. Let's not look at this through a particular mindset of cherishing the text. Let's look at the text standing on its own. And let's apply the same level of scrutiny. This is sort of what Thomas Jefferson said in a letter to his nephew. Apply with equal scrutiny anything that you read, including the Bible. And with this, and there's my dog, she's back there. And with this, we're going to apply that level of scrutiny. And I invite you to look into my mind as I come to the conclusion that Jesus really wasn't a good guy. He was a prick. He was a mentally ill, narcissistic, abusive prick. That's what I got from the text. So let's go to the text. And if you disagree with me, great. Disagree with me. Tell me where I'm wrong. Okay, so the book of the generation of Jesus Christ, the son of David, the son of Abraham. I'm skipping ahead because what we have right there from 1:1 to 1:17 is we have a genealogy. And there are 52 generations between Jesus and David. David, of course, is a prominent king. And with the prominent king necessitating some kind of lineage to some. Oh, really quick, Mather, do you have a question?
Well, I just wanted to point out that Matthew and Luke are inconsistent about what that genealogy is.
Yes, that is true. There's a different number. There's a different number. Thomas Paine talks about that as well.
And
So, with oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
the documentation of this genealogy comes from the people we're investigating. So they're going to make their own best case to justify what they believe in. There's no third party, what do they call it? Corroboration.
Yep.
So
And
I know.
more importantly, this genealogy is tying Joseph to David. And if Joseph is not the if we're playing Maury Povich, Joseph, you were not the father, then where is the relevance of this? Where is the relevance of this? And beyond this, I think about trauma and I think about generational trauma. I think about narcissism and looking at it under Matthew 1:19, then Joseph, her husband, being just a man, was not willing to make her a public example and was minded to put her away privily. And with that, it strikes me that if we have a man who is in a abusive, codependent relationship with a narcissist, he's going to go out of his way to do things that are not in his best interest to try to protect this person who has done something that would have been seen as wrong, who lied to him, which narcissists tend to lie. If you've ever been in a relationship with an abusive narcissist, they lie. They even get you to the point you make excuses for them. And then you go out of your way to do things that you probably should leave this person. You probably should go, but you love them. So you're going to stick around. So right then and there, it strikes me that Mary might not have been the most honest, upright, or healthy person. She was a teenage girl who got pregnant, and then her husband said, what's going on here? Oh, it's the Son of God. And then he does not want to embarrass her because he loves her. Okay. Then we go forward to, let's see, and the angel of the Lord came to Joseph. And additionally, Joseph did not have sex with her until she brought forth her firstborn son. People can still have sex when their spouse is pregnant. So Joseph missed out. He missed out on all that teen snatch. Now, Jesus was born in Bethlehem. Okay. So we see these individuals, these magi, coming and telling King Herod there is a star that they're coming to. And they're coming to worship the King of the Jews. And Herod, if you look at Herod historically, Herod the Great was born in 76 before Common Era, BCE. So that means in the year 0, Herod would be 76. And Herod was not a king from some family dynasty. Herod was a king because the Roman Empire for whom he was working for made him a king. They gave him a throne. So with this, all the city was worried about this child. And why would Herod be worried about his reign being threatened? Because he had the backing of Rome. Rome made him a king. Additionally, it strikes me that Herod was of Arab ancestry, not of Jewish ancestry, and there's been a conflict between the Arabs and the Jews for a long time. As such, it strikes me that this might be playing into some of that. I am not exactly how did the Magi find out about the holy birth before the local king? And, this is just, it's suspicious. And then Herod then came and ordered the death of lots of children. Apparently, this is not in the other Gospels. I haven't read the other Gospels yet, but also this is not recorded in history. This was not recorded in history outside of this particular text. Herod did apparently kill a couple of his sons, but he didn't kill all of these young children in any other text besides the book of Matthew. And if a 76-year-old man is told there's going to be a baby that's born and he will be the king of the Jews, and Herod is killing his own kids, he's going to be dead by the time that that young man is going to become the king of the Jews. So how is that young man going to challenge his reign? Herod is either senile, he dies shortly thereafter from kidney disease, apparently, but he's either senile or this story is just a contrivance. Then we go further that God has warned Joseph in a dream that Herod is coming for Jesus. And it also strikes me right here that the prophecy says that the child will be called Emmanuel, which means God with us. But then Joseph opts to change call his son Yeshua, which means Savior. So it doesn't even comport itself with its own prophecy. And so all the children in Bethlehem were slain, and Joseph was told in a dream, which that's suspicious in and of itself, to go out to Egypt and get away because Herod's coming. But if that particular God was able to wipe out entire groups of people and nearly cull the entire human race, it just seems like this is a drama for God's own amusement, and God likes fucking with people. That's what this appears like. And then they come back and he shall be called Nazarene. And then we have a huge gap in the story. We have a major gap in the story. All right, any comments on this? We've done Matthew 1 and we've done Matthew 2.
I think it's nice that you pointed out that this God that was able to basically destroy the whole earth has to go through all these hoops and acting to try and make this seem so more dramatic than it really needs to be, when he could have simply just ended the whole problem with just a snap of his fingers. I didn't really even think about that until you said it, but it really is true.
And it seems like throughout this entire narrative, God has limited power when it's convenient for the narrative for God to have limited power. And God is always promised to have mighty power when someone's making a big claim and threatening someone else. It just is too convenient. It's too convenient. So now we're in Galilee. Nazareth is in Galilee, which is a territory in this Levant area. And there's an individual who is out there doing something which is not traditional Jewish ritual. It's baptizing and confessing sins. And the guy is out there wearing conspicuous clothes and eating odd things. It makes me think of Gwyneth Paltrow and Goop. It makes me think of somebody out there just putting on a show and drawing people to come and enjoy the show and feel something. It seems like an early rock concert of sorts, putting on elaborate costume and eating peculiar things. And then this is being purported as though this guy is some kind of brilliant and profound individual, when in fact it's like a homeless guy running around just dunking people in water. I don't know. And then it seems as though this guy who is a handyman, a carpenter, he gets an idea, holy shit, I could get a follower. I could do what this guy is doing. He wants in on the action. He wants in on the action because keep in mind, with the exception of the Herod character, at this time, the idea of social mobility did not exist. So it was generational. Your father's a carpenter, you're a carpenter. Your father's a fisherman, you're a fisherman. So looking at this, people were baptized. Jesus came and was baptized in the Jordan River, confessing his sins. And but what did I write there? It's not a typical Jewish ritual. But when he saw many of the Pharisees and Sadducees, those are the priests and political class, came to his baptism, He said unto them, O generation of vipers, who hath warned you to flee from the wrath to come? Bring forth therefore fruits meet for repentance, and think not to say within yourselves, we have Abraham to our father, for I say unto you that God is able of these stones to raise up children of Abraham. So it just seems like, it strikes me, that a parallel is Billy Joel's song, The Angry Young Man. And it's just this guy out there just spouting a bunch of gobbledygook and just riling up people. I indeed baptize you with water unto repentance, but he that cometh after me is mightier than I, whose shoes I am not worthy to bear. He shall baptize you with the Holy Ghost and with fire, whose fan is in his hand, and he will thoroughly purge. So it seems like he's like becoming an opening act for this new guy, or giving this new guy a moment at an open mic. Any thoughts on this, man?
Well, first I want to commend you for digging into it, and bringing all your intellect to it. I look forward to your part two, because you can analyze it as if you're taking it as it is, or you can analyze it like Richard Hughes was historical and Richard Hughes was added later. Cause there's some other writings that quote John the Baptist's followers, and they actually thought he was the Messiah. And so for him to say, there's somebody coming after me, from an investigative standpoint, that would sound like something that they put into John the Baptist's mouth. But yeah, that's what I thought of. He probably didn't even say that, the historical John the Baptist.
Well, what's coming? What is the fate that's coming quite soon for John the Baptist in this narrative? What's happening to John the Baptist right after this narrative, this part of the narrative?
Well, he just kidnapped by the authorities, and they killed him.
And right then and there, it just seems like, and I just wrote this, it just seems like John the Baptist is trying to bring Jesus in to distract, to be his replacement, to take the heat off of him. I mean, honestly, that's what it seems like. These people are charlatans. And then cometh Jesus from Galilee to Jordan and to John to be baptized by him. Then was Jesus led up with the Spirit. He was afterward and hungered. And Jesus, you're not yourself when you're hungry. Also, this is a pointless contrivance. Why is this part of this? If Jesus knew that he was divine, then why try to be tempted? Oh yeah, he goes out to be tempted by the devil. So if Jesus knows that he is divine, or has an inclination, then why try to be tempted? And if the devil is real, if the devil has the inclination that Jesus is divine, then why would he try to tempt Jesus? That doesn't make any sense. That really doesn't make any goddamn sense. Eric.
What I've heard since I've been to so many Bible studies in the past and stuff, Christians will often claim that the reason this happened was because Jesus had to be tested to show how divine he was. It was necessary for the devil to test him in this way to prove that he was incorruptible and he was the real thing, the actual Son of God, as opposed to just an ordinary man. So him going out into the desert to be tempted and tested and all this is supposed to be a proof that his power is beyond the ordinary man and beyond the devil and all that. So
yeah, well, it also strikes me that all this stuff with the big supernatural stuff, like what comes later when Elias and Moses are kind of hanging out with the big bright light and the voice of God comes down, It also strikes me that a lot of this big, flashy, important stuff happens when these people are alone, away from other people. Sure,
That's a
sure.
good point. That's a good
And
point. Yeah.
additionally, looking at this, it's like what are the temptations? So he was hungered, and when tempter came to him, if thou be the son of God, and if that were true, the devil would know that he was the son of God. And what was the point of tempting him? If thou be the son of God. So this is just someone fudging their backstory just to make it sound like they're stronger and better than they were. And then here's the first moment where this is the first of many incidents where Jesus doesn't really answer anyone directly, except he'll often be just a dick. He's a dick. Man shall not live by bread. And when the tempter, if thou is the son of God, command these stones to be made bread. And Jesus says, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God. That's sort of a sarcastic, smartass dick response. Then the devil taketh him up into the holy city and set him upon a pinnacle of the temple. So he takes him up really high and is like, Jesus, I can see your house from here. And saith unto him, if thou be the son of God, cast thyself down. And then all of a sudden it's, thou shalt not tempt the Lord thy God. So all of us, like, what was the point of this? Going up to say, I'm going to go and face the temptation, then saying, you shall not tempt the Lord your God. This is stupid. And then the devil leaveth him, and behold, angels came and ministered to him. And like what? So he was hungry, and then the devil said, hey, look, I'll give you anything you want. You can have the entire world. It will be your kingdom. No, that's okay. And then it's like you're hungry, you're offered a big piece of real estate, and then you're put up high on a high area, and that's it. That's your temptation. That's your temptation. That's instant. Like the people who are being told this, I don't know what the hell happened to them for them to see this as something A, incorruptible, but B, that this is something that frankly is spectacular. Eric.
I don't want to dominate the conversation.
No, go ahead. No, we're having a talk. Go ahead.
Because this is also like after like studying other religions, like one thing that seemed to like stand out to me too after like learning some other things, like this is oddly kind of similar to like what the Buddha went through.
Hmm.
Because I know the Buddha went through his own like kind of period of testing and he was meditating under his
The body tree.
the Bodhi tree.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And then the I guess it was the god of carnality, I forgot its their name, approached him and kind of was the same thing. Tempted him in all kind of like worldly pleasures and stuff, but the Buddha resisted to the end. So it seems odd to me how similar these stories kind of are.
Yeah. And then Joseph Campbell, The Hero's Journey. Oh, sorry. Hero with a Thousand Faces, Joseph Campbell, right here. Scholarly works. And my dog. Great. Yeah, I know. And then all of a sudden, now when Jesus heard that John was cast into prison, he departed into Galilee. So looking at that, it's just like it's obvious that Jesus got the bug. Jesus got the hunger for adoration and fame by looking at this performance artist. And then this performance artist is like, fuck, I'm going to get arrested. Oh my God, the heat's on. The Pharisees and the Sadducees are coming to me and pressuring me. Hey, Jesus, you want some time at this open mic? And then he gets arrested. So the guy he brings in to take his place so he can distract the political and religious establishment, which is also the political establishment. He gets out of Dodge while the getting is good. So Jesus fled into Galilee. And then from that time, Jesus began to preach and say, repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. So he takes over Do you guys remember Gallagher?
TV
Does
show?
anyone remember Gallagher?
TV show?
Yeah, like the comedian.
Yeah, I do.
So remember his name was, I believe, Leo Gallagher, and you know what his brother did?
No, that I don't remember.
His brother took up the act and called himself Gallagher 2 instead of the number 2, TOO. So and Leo Gallagher wound up suing his brother for taking over his act. So this seems like, because everyone was big on John the Baptist, and then Jesus came in, and Jesus kind of became Gallagher 2. And instead of smashing watermelons, Jesus smashed demons. And Jesus, walking by the Sea of Galilee, saw two brethren, Simon called Peter and Andrew his brother, casting a net into the sea, and they were fishers. And he said unto them, follow me, and I will make you fishers of men. This is beginning to sound like a multi-level marketing scam.
Mhm.
Additionally, people didn't consider social mobility back then. It was not a thing. Your father was a fisherman, you're a fisherman, you got a good gig going. You're gonna have, you're gonna marry a woman, you're gonna have kids, they're gonna become fishermen too, and you got a good solid life. And then not only was there Simon and Andrew, but he got two other, James and who's the other guy? James, son of Zebedee, and his John. So James and John. He gets two brothers. So he doesn't get individuals. He gets two brothers. So it seems like he knows how to convince one to convince the other. So he gets two gullible brothers. Maybe they were like middle children and last born. So they weren't going to get the house and they weren't going to get the focus of their fathers and the business. And so he gets these two sets of brothers to go with him. So that almost seems like he's triangulating using one brother to get the other. And he's doing that twice because it worked the first time. What are your thoughts on this one?
Two sets of brothers.
Yeah, there was Peter and Andrew
Two.
and James and John. You got two
Okay,
sets of brothers.
I was to wear one set.
Uh,
Well, it would help cement the loyalty of the group. If you
mhm.
had four brothers, they would be, you would think family loyalty was a big thing in those days, the bloodline, and there would be a better cohesion. I'm just guessing.
Hey, we can make a porn out of this. Four brothers, one loaf. And Jesus went about Galilee and yada, yada, yada. And he began healing all manner of sickness and all manner of disease among the people. And this is coming from his followers saying this. And this was before the germ theory of disease. And we've seen this before. People do this, these big faith healing things and these Chautauqua revival tents. We see this and we know that it doesn't last. People get adrenaline going through, and in front of a crowd, people were able to push themselves harder than they otherwise would. They had this performance push, and his fame went through all of Syria, and they brought unto him all sick people that were taken with diverse diseases and torments, and those which were possessed by devils, and those which were lunatic, and those that had palsy, and healed them. And there followed him great multitudes of people from Galilee and from Decapolis and from Jerusalem and from Judea and far beyond Jordan. So he's building a following. Great. He's become an influencer and he's doing some parlor tricks. He's doing some children's magic shows like, look, you're healed. We see people do this today. And it doesn't mean that they're healed. It means that they do some kind of performance where they said that they're healed. I mean, is there any follow up in the Bible? Is there any follow up to any of this? I don't think so. And seeing the multitudes, he went up to the mountain. And here's the Sermon on the Mount. And here's what I read this before, but I didn't think deeply about it. There's one thing I didn't really like about it, but then after reading it deeply, I really don't like it. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. That's humble people. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. So right then and there, people who are humble, who are salt of the earth, who really don't want for anything, and they don't really put themselves out there because they're modest. Why are they going to want the earth? Why are they going to want big rewards? Humble people don't do. Additionally, if you look at this, if you've ever been a public speaker and you've ever had to come up and talk and you don't really have material prepped, you'll get a feeling what Jesus is doing here. And seeing the multitudes, he went up to the mountain, and when he was set, his disciples came unto him, and he opened his mouth and he taught them, saying, Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are those who which do hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be fulfilled. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the pure of heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Um, it strikes me that this is basically, it just seems like Jesus was just winging it. It looked like he didn't have anything prepared. And he was just bullshitting, that he was winging it, pandering to the crowd, because he's more articulate when he talks about the parables. So it demonstrates he has the ability to have a more coherent and cogent narrative and a more coherent and cogent presentation. So looking at this, or maybe he's just new and he's inexperienced. But ultimately, it just seems like he doesn't have any material prepped. And if he doesn't have any material prepped, what is he going to do? He's going to bullshit because he has an audience. And it's just like those people who, they never hate when they can find a camera. They never avoid a camera if they can find it. So right then and there, it just seems like he's winging it. And then, and blessed are ye when men shall revile you and persecute you and shall say all manner of against you falsely for my sake. And if you know any narcissists, you've ever been in a relationship with a narcissist, it just seems like he's gaslighting these people. Seems like he's gaslighting these people. For anyone who shall revile you and persecute you and say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake, this is called splitting. This is trying to isolate the people who are following him or starting to follow him. So that way, if anyone says anything to the contrary, all of a sudden they're persecuted. L. Ron Hubbard did this. He called people who would even say, wait a second, he called them suppressive people. You're a suppressive person. And then we go forward, rejoice and be exceedingly glad, for great is your reward in heaven. For so persecuted they the prophets which were before you. Ye are the salt of the earth, and if that salt has lost its savor, where shall it be salted? It is thenceforth good for nothing. So if you've ever been to a multi-level marketing meeting where you're brought in, this just seems like a scam. And you are the light of the world, a city set on a hill. And one thing I've noticed about narcissists, and keep in mind, I've said it, I am not a psychologist, I am not a mental health professional. I've just been looking into it because of my own history of codependence and being with narcissists. This is what love bombing is like. Look how amazing you are. Look, I have all these followers and all these people are wanting to come and listen to me. And you know what? Look how great you are. You are the salt of the world. You are a light of the world. You are a city that cannot be hid. You are amazing. And if anybody says anything or even questions what you're doing, they're persecuting you. And if they're persecuting you, you got rewards coming because they're doing it against me. I mean, think of narcissists that you've known, celebrities or otherwise. And if you've ever dealt with narcissists, it just strikes me. This is what happened when I was reading it. Because if you've ever been with a narcissist or someone with borderline personality disorder in a bad codependent situation, and you get out of it, which is really hard to escape, you start becoming a narcissism whisperer, and you start noticing all the telltale signs that people who are not immune to this type of garbage, they fall for it because narcissists and sociopaths and psychopaths, they groom their victims and they find ways to get to them. They find ways to manipulate them and to use them and to get them emotionally dependent upon them. And love bombing is one of those things. And looking at this, it's like this guy shows up and he's talking about, he basically is demonstrating, he just kind of threw it together because he didn't have any material. Um, he then says this, neither do men light a candle. And then right here, think not I've come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill. And later he tells his followers, when he gets some pressure, much like John the Baptist did, he later says, don't say that I'm the Son of God. He said, don't say that. But up until this point, for months, he's going around doing all these parlor tricks. And he's saying things like this, that he's come to save things. And then later, when the heat is on, he says, fool it, fool it. So he goes on and on and on. And right here, this is the part that I really hate. And this is the part that lost me on Christianity. You've heard that it was said by them of the old time, thou shalt not commit adultery. But I say unto you that whoever looketh on a woman to lust after her hath committed adultery with her already in his heart. And looking at Buddhism, yeah, Buddhism talks about right thought and right action, but Buddhism doesn't harangue you for being human. This is an element that we don't see in organized religion up till this point with Jesus on the Sermon on the Mount. We have a term for this. We call it a thought crime. We call it a thought crime. And if thy right eye shall offend thee, pluck it out and cast it from thee. He says this again later, but it is profitable for thee that one of thy members should perish, and not that thy whole body shall be cast into hell. So right then and there, he's setting up an elaborate example of how to castigate yourself and how to punish yourself because you're going against something that the narcissist in this relationship has said. And then he goes, and this is what I really think. This is, I think, if you're a woman and you're a Christian, I think that you need to reconsider this, because right here, it hath been said, whoever shall put away his wife, that's divorce or locking her away, let him give her a writing of divorcement. But I say unto you, so divorce was okay. Divorce was okay. Divorce was okay. In Islam, divorce is okay as well. You're not a spinster if you're divorced in Judaism or Islam. You're not. But Jesus comes along and says that whoever shall put away his wife and whoever shall marry her that is divorced committeth adultery. That inherently says women are of a subordinate class. And thinking about this is the one big thing that Jesus has outside of being questioned. He talks a lot about adultery. And thinking about his humble beginnings of, there was probably some arguments within the household between Joseph and Mary, because Joseph was probably beaten down, because obviously looking at what he said, it's indicative of someone who's in a dastardly codependent relationship with a narcissist, that he did not want to have her endure public shaming. So he kept in his relationship with her. Obviously, she was impregnated by someone else. And this is not the first time Jesus talks about this, about adultery and all of this. So it strikes me that there might have been something discussed in the household when Jesus was growing up, that adultery and threats of divorce were common in the household. So right here, he's bringing up his own generational trauma and saying, hey, you can't marry a divorced woman because that's adultery. You can't even do that. And keep in mind, if he's saying this and he's saying about divorce being legal, the Jews have divorce, the Muslims have divorce, and Jesus is inserting this saying you can't get divorced. It seems as though Jesus has a particular nerve that's triggered by this. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, in my own family, on my father's side, my grandmother was married to my grandfather for, I don't know, up to a million years. They had 6 kids together. But he kind of started looking over the fence in his old age and she divorced him. My grandmother divorced my grandfather. And she was quite the fundamentalist, not a raging, uh, storming the gates kind of fundamentalist, but she read the Bible a lot and it was all kind of literal for her. So she couldn't remarry because her first husband was still alive. Well, she found this other guy. I don't know. I was just 12 or 13. I don't know how she met him, probably at a church meeting of some kind. But anyway, she married him, and she didn't talk about divorce and remarriage after that because she had done it. And prior to the second marriage, she was against divorce and remarriage if your first husband was still alive, especially.
Mhm.
But then she dropped that. I did notice that. I never said anything. I was a very sensitive child. I knew when to keep my mouth shut, not like now. But so I think you have something there that he must have heard his parents talking, pillow talk, or either at the dinner table, whatever they mealtime. He's heard some things, and plus the neighbors always talk, and the kids, I'm sure, told tales as well.
Yeah. And I mean, how many people do you know that have a thing that's a really sore subject with them, and they'll always say it under their breath, or they'll be really finicky about that thing and make it everybody else's problem? That's what
Yes,
this reminds me of. And
yes.
then later, but let your communication be yea, yea, nay, nay, for whatsoever is more than these cometh of evil. And, this is nonsense. The world is full of grays. The world is full of relativism. The world is full of nuance, complexity, requiring requiring focus and consideration and contemplation. The world is not black and white, up and down. It's not a place of dichotomies. It's a place of false dichotomies. And saying that to go outside of good or evil with this marked distinction of false dichotomies, this is seeming more like a multi-level marketing thing. And as Jesus commissions the disciples, it all seems even more like a multi-level marketing scam. Then
And
we've heard, oh, go ahead, sorry.
I was going to say, we're also dependent on the translators.
Hmm.
And did they translate for the future, like in now, the 21st century, or were they translating for the century and the decade they were living in at the time?
Well,
They're going
this
to put
is,
a slant on
yeah,
things.
this right here is 16th century. This is King James Version.
Okay.
Mather.
Well, I just wanted to point out that there are a lot of assumptions that people could make that haven't been mentioned here. Matthew was specifically designed to be a sales pitch for Christianity to Jewish people, unlike Mark, unlike Luke, unlike John. So, and then also, we have 2,000 years of dubious copying of the text. There's a famous verse about the Trinity that was inserted around 1400 that wasn't in the Bible before that. And so, that's a good way to win a theological argument, when the church is running the entire civilization, is to insert a verse to the authoritative text. What was the original story? Who knows? After 2,000 years.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And, the reason we have the canonical gospels is because they were the ones that were being used more often in the churches. And who was it? Where's my thing? Okay. So looking at this, was it? Oh yeah. And then Matthew was killed in Ethiopia because he got the the love interest of the king to become a nun. And so the king came to him. Apparently, his name was Hirticus, and his interest was Iphigenia. And apparently, Matthew said, "No, she's good." So then the king killed him with the sword. So effectively, Matthew lost his life by cock blocking the king. Further, right here, whoever shall smite thee on thy right cheek, turn to him the other also, and love your enemies, bless them that curse you. And this seems like he's grooming his followers to accept abuse, to accept to be the target of abuse, and to just be there and accept it. That's how it seems. I mean, it's put out there so you can be compassionate and you can be temperate, and you can have an element of rising above insults and slings and arrows, sometimes literally. But right then and there at the start, it seems like he's trying to groom his followers to be passive and to accept abuse. That's how I'm seeing this. But then again, I'm fucking crazy. What do I know? And right here, take heed that you do not your alms before men to be seen of them. Otherwise, you have no reward of your Father which is in heaven. Therefore, when thou doest thine alms, do not sound a trumpet before thee. And Jesus does a lot of spectacle on these particular things, but it just seems like he's coming from a perspective of, you know, being Gallagher too for John the Baptist, and now he's telling anyone who might try to challenge him for primacy in being a spiritual purveyor that, hey, if you're gonna do any of this, do it in quiet, do it in silence. And then, oh, go ahead.
Oh, well, I'm gonna put in my female perspective here.
Sure.
Because keep in mind that Christianity is a patriarchal society, and
Mhm.
and obviously this is all coming from a male perspective. And keep in mind that also they have obviously freakish viewpoints on sex, and obviously they are showing where, you know, how limited women are and should be or whatever, you know, but obviously men could do whatever the heck they want to. You know what I mean?
Mhm. No, absolutely. He at least in this part of the narrative, he's focused only on men. Kind of gay, if you ask me. Just kidding, Eric.
Well, I was just going to add when you were talking about the turning the other cheek. I know that I know that was a point of contention with like a lot of participants in like the civil rights movement also, because like one of the reasons a lot of people were drawn to Islam is because Islam was very not like that. There was a lot of stipulations within the text that actually advocated for self-defense, whereas Christianity, you know, kind of preaches that you just receive punishment and it's for the glory of God. So I know that's one reason a lot of like black people were drawn to Islam during that time. So it's kind of interesting when you think of it that way, because it does kind of seem like these passages or Jesus talks about this. It seems like he is gearing his servants to like receive abuse, and it's supposed to be divinely mandated. So I've always had problems with that turning the other cheek first. Even when I was a Christian, it was hard for me to accept. So
Yeah.
it makes a lot of sense.
Mm. But also later he contradicts that, and we'll go to that shortly. Mather.
I just wanted to point out with Eric there that we're kind of in a dictatorship sort of situation now. And so a lot of people advocate nonviolent resistance, which is similar to turn the other cheek. So I think it's probably an open question, at least to me, about whether there's some tactical or strategic value here or not.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, and uh, he's going to change that shortly. And right here about the lilies of the field, um, and yet I say to you that even Solomon in his glory was not arrayed like one of these. Um, Take no thought for your life, what you shall eat or what you shall drink. So effectively, what he's doing right here is consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They toil not, nor do they spin. There's a saying that strikes me on this. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And if you want to have a group of people that's utterly dependent upon you, take away their resources, take away any future plans that they may have that don't involve you. Mather.
Sorry, I forgot to lower my hand.
Oh, and then take therefore no thought to the morrow, for the morrow shall take thought for the things itself, sufficient until the day is the evil thereof. It's narcissistic crap. And then judge not that ye not be judged. And later Jesus gets very judgmental and he tells people to be judgmental. So he changes in the narrative itself. And this is effectively saying, um, don't don't start criticizing other people. But later he talks about criticizing other people and how to do it. He provides a plan, a format on how to criticize other people. You do it alone and to the side. But here it's like, hey, don't judge, take away all form of scrutiny. And right here, thou hypocrite, first cast out the beam out of thine own eye, and then thou shalt clearly see to cast out the mote out of thy brother's eye. Um, but what happens? What happens if you're a person who cares about somebody? Eh, it's this is not necessarily defining being judgmental. It's saying don't criticize, but could that not include criticism of someone who might be doing something that's not in their best interest? In fact, this sounds more like isolating his followers to say that if someone starts criticizing, that what they're doing is they're inherently causing harm to somebody by kind of stepping in and providing a second opinion. That's how I'm taking this. Give not that which is holy unto dogs, neither cast ye pearls before swine, lest they trample them under their feet and turn again and rend you. And again, this seems like a friend-foe dichotomy Jesus is trying to establish for the sake of insulating his acolytes unto himself alone. And like I said earlier, this is like L. Ron Hubbard said to people who would question and not necessarily support that they are suppressive people. And further, and ask and it shall be given, seek and ye shall find, knock and it shall be opened unto you. For everyone that asketh receiveth, and he that seeketh findeth, and to him that knocketh it shall be opened. This is just blowing smoke up the followers' asses. Because straight is the gate and narrow is the way which leadeth unto life, and few therefore be that find it. And this is sort of, Deepak Chopra does a lot of this. People who speak in vague terms, that speak in riddles, present themselves, if they're trying to gain a following, that if you understand what they're saying or pretend to understand what they're saying, that you're initiated into this and you're an insider and that you've got the secret. Richard Hofstadter talks about this in The Paranoid Style of American Politics, that, hey, look, we have the minutia, we have jargon, we have insider knowledge, and if people start opposing us, it's because we're doing the right thing. It's a type of paranoia. This is pushing paranoia. And additionally, this is additionally telling people to not look out, to not scrutinize, to not have a depth of mind, saying, beware of false prophets, which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves. And it just tells me, looking at this, that looking at how Jesus is acting and trying to consolidate authority and power, it seems as though he might qualify as one of these. It's splitting behavior. It seems generally perpetuated trauma, which the mother misled the father and guilted him to marriage to care for another man's child. Jesus is replicating this, saying, don't listen to other people. I'm here for you alone. And then not everyone that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth will the will of my Father which is in heaven. And this is love bombing again. It's giving you proximity to power and prestige. It's said that it can be this prestige and power can be transferred to you. It's non-transferable, people, and it's name dropping to gain trust and confidence. That's what this seems like. And then we'll discuss after we get to Matthew 8. And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat open the house, and it fell, and great was the fall. It's just, basically looking at this, it's saying that, Lord, have we not prophesied in thy name? Thy name we've cast out devils. It's saying that you can only do things through me. And this is what cult leaders do. And we look at Jim Jones, we look at Heaven's Gate, we look at all sorts of cults. And this is what they do. It's not like this was original. This happened beforehand as well. And this is continuing to happen. And then we see this, and this is about the leper. This is about the leper, where Jesus heals a leper. And a leper doesn't mean your fingers are falling off. It meant like you had a scaly skin condition, and Hansen's disease was rampant. And it came to pass when Jesus had ended these sayings, the people were astonished at his doctrine, for he taught them as one having authority and not as the scribes. When he has come down from the mountain, great multitudes followed him. And behold, there came a leper and worshipped him, saying, Lord, if thou wilt, thou canst make me clean. And Jesus put forth his hand and touched him, saying, I will, be thou clean. And immediately his leprosy was cleansed. So he's in front of a crowd. He has an audience. So what's happening? Someone's coming up. And if you were to see this, you would say, that guy's a mark. That guy's in on it. And it's just like he's cleansed. So if the leprosy just falls off his body, could that not be costume and makeup? And when people are together, let me tell you, when you're giving a talk, it's easier to convince 5,000 people than it is to convince 3. It's easier to get 100 people to laugh than 2, because these things are contagious. And when people are part of the group mentality, people are more likely to accept something. So the larger the group, the more likely they are to accept something. And then later, Jesus starts healing a lot of lepers. So it almost seems like one leper comes in now when he's in front of a crowd. He hasn't cleansed the leper yet. But as he's in front of a crowd and he's getting them to be dependent upon him for resources, for guidance, and he's building this type of dependence, all of a sudden, he's trying out some new material. That's what this seems like. Jesus is trying out new material. And Jesus saith to him, see, tell no man, but go thy way. And then the leper went out and told somebody. And then Jesus starts curing people. But this was before the germ theory of disease. And Jesus goes and his second in command is this guy, Peter Shimon Bar Jonah. And he goes, and it's said that he cured an illness of Peter's mother. And if you're building a following and healing people is your shtick, does it not seem suspicious that his second in command, his personal assistant, says, look, Jesus cured my mother? Does anyone else find that odd? That's a good point, Justin Sandoval. Justin Sandoval says the apostles tried to grow Christianity throughout the New Testament through the telling of the story of Jesus because many were not aware or did not know about Christianity. And it's interesting that some of the Gospels were specifically to promote it to the Jews, others were to the Gentiles. And the language is different across several of the synoptic and the canonical Gospels. And then Jesus saith unto him, foxes have holes and the birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man hath nowhere to lay his head. That's a bit passive aggressive. Is that not passive aggressive? And then Jesus said unto the people, um, when it's just being a dick there. And then casting out the demons into a herd of swine. What did the swine do to deserve that? Because they instantly ran down and drowned themselves. I don't know. Um, and Jesus is saying that disease is caused because of sin, that the palsy was caused because of sin. All right. Publicans are Romans, or people working for the Romans. Um, And it came to pass as Jesus sat at meat in his house, behold, many publicans and sinners came and sat down with him and his disciples. So were the Romans sinners? Why is there a distinction there? Were the Romans not considered sinners because only the Jews could be considered sinners? I don't know. These are dichotomies. This is tribalism at its best of us versus them, us versus them. And he said further about the Pharisees saw it. Um, and when the Pharisees saw it, they said unto his disciples, why eateth your master with publicans and sinners? But when Jesus heard that, he said unto them, they that would be the whole need not a physician, but they that are sick. But go ye and learn what that meaneth. I will have mercy and will not sacrifice, for I am not come to call the righteous, but sinners to repentance. And this just seems like the one group he's actually pushing back against is the Pharisees. And it almost seems like, yes, pigs were diverse due to Jewish dietary laws, but still they were just random animals that were there, and they didn't deserve that. Should that have been true? But looking at this, it's just you need Jesus to take care of your um to take care of your troubles. And right here about having essentially a new soul and a new body, about being cleansed and made new. Um, I don't like this personally. And I think that there is a particular art form. There's a particular art form, and what is that called? It is called kintsugi. Is anyone familiar with kintsugi? Here's what kintsugi is. Kintsugi is that Japanese art form where they'll take a broken piece of pottery and they'll take gold and they will repair it, and you'll see the gold marbling through the piece. And it's more important, it's more precious because it was a broken thing that was repaired. You brought it back together. And its past and its damage are part of its story. And you don't toss it. You don't toss the baby out with the bathwater. But this says, no, you can't fill a wine vessel, an old wine vessel, with new wine. And this is metaphoric, but they put new wine in new bottles and both are preserved. So to rid yourself of your past, that's also what narcissists do. They try to make you ignore where you came from, so you're dependent upon them. And I would be doing a disservice if I didn't bring up other traditions that I found to be more substantial, other traditions that I personally found to be um, more sufficient and better. And right here, let's see, what is this one? While he spake these things unto them, behold, there came a certain ruler and worshipped him, saying, my daughter is even now dead, but come and lay thy hand upon her, and she shall live. And Jesus arose and followed him, and so did his disciples. And behold, a woman which was diseased with an issue of blood 12 years came behind him and touched the hem of his garment, and the woman was made whole from that hour. And it just seems Jesus is going after desperate people now. Um, According to your faith be it unto you. And their eyes were open, and Jesus greatly charged them, saying, "See that no man know it." And he started off talking about himself as the Son of God or the Son of Man and doing these miracles in front of small groups. And now he's telling people, keep this quiet, which almost seems like, because other people like the leper went out and spread it around, it almost seems like he's like, yeah, keep it quiet. This is a secret nobody should know. And he knows that's too good. So his people are going to be out there spreading the word. It just seems like Jesus was really good at PR. And when he called unto him his 12 disciples, he gave them power against unclean spirits to cast them out, to heal all manner of sickness and disease. And like I said earlier, this is where this starts to come off like a multi-level marketing scam. It's like, hey, he's building his team so they can build a team. And obviously, someone's taking care of Jesus for the work that he's doing. Obviously, he's eating. Obviously, he's housed. And then additionally, not only is it obvious that he's housed, but earlier he said, the foxes of the holes have a place to sleep, but why not the Son of Man? So he's expecting people to shelter him, to quarter him. So obviously people are doing it, and he's gained a sense of entitlement that it's going to happen. And further, he's saying that he's only going to only proselytize to the Jews, to go after the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So why not proselytize to more than just the Jews? This was what inevitably happened. Was this to appear like at the present futile efforts were directed to be as such, or as a way to mask the impotence of conversion? That's what I want to know. That. Okay, I'm in Matthew 10. Any comments so far? If you disagree, disagree. Any comments? And keep in mind, we're looking at this narrative through the sake of it being a narrative. We're not looking to preserve or destroy Christianity for the sake of doing either. We're looking through it objectively as the narrative itself, in some semblance of a manner of what would happen if nobody knew about Christianity, if nobody had heard of Yeshua of Nazareth, if we just uncovered this today. So any thoughts outside of myself? Because I've been doing a lot of talking. Justin Tucker. Or Mather. Mather, what are your thoughts?
Oh, well, right? I mean, the different gospels, different versions for different audiences.
Mm-hmm. Carrie, what about yourself? What are your thoughts so far?
Well, let's see. I guess, I personally will argue that Jesus himself never wanted a church in his name. That wasn't what he was after. He just wanted to preach that love was the most important thing, because he was an enlightened being, and he wanted to. I want to argue that he was actually trying to sell enlightenment to others, but obviously others kind of took it the wrong way, and they really kind of got lost. And they given that given he the impression that he was able to make on them, they decided to worship him instead of becoming enlightened themselves.
Mather.
That's, yeah.
Oh, sorry. Mather. All right. So to keep going. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry, I forgot to lower my hand again. Yeah, sorry.
It's okay. All right. So onward to this. Okay. So now we're down here. This further multi-level marketing talk. And the brother shall deliver up the brother to death, and the father child. Is this about There we go. So this just seems like multi-level marketing. The disciple is not above his master, nor the servant above his Lord. So it's not for the disciple that he be as a master and his servant as a Lord, if they have called the master of the house of Beelzebub. How much shall they call them of his household? So my thought up to this point is, why would an omnipotent being care? This is indicative of an abusive, predatory individual taking advantage of desperate, lonely folks. There would have been obviously been a number of people working in the fish trade at Galilee, and Jesus got a few who were desperate to escape, but the ones gullible enough to buy into this bullshit. Expressing the accrual of followers as a mark of legitimacy is easily undermined when you get to a handful of folks who are ready to take anything coming their way, and seeing as how it was two sets of brothers, they were obviously family issues at play, and Jesus was able to use one to lure the other. And so he talks about that there. Um, Fear ye not, therefore, ye are of more value than many sparrows. Whoever shall therefore confess me before men, him will I confess also. So, where is this? Where is this? Oh, Justin, you are muted. Justin Tucker, you are muted. Hold on, I'm going to unmute you. But effectively, but whomever shall deny me. Oh, yeah. So, okay, go ahead.
Oh, okay, yeah. Regarding the earlier, I would say that the teaching about being poor, I think that can be dangerous because you have to make sure that you have enough resources to survive because you become vulnerable, you know. So, like, the gospel teaching of being poor, it's only useful, like, when there's no capitalistic machines, you know, like when we're hunter gatherers kind of, because everybody has the same amount and it's, you know, Hakuna Matata. But when there's when it's like man versus machine out here, you don't want to be poor because you might get sick and stuff, and you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, like I said earlier, it just seems as though in this narrative itself that people that the cult leader is trying to get his followers to be utterly dependent upon him. That's just what it seems like. And then right here, whoever shall deny, and it's just he's been saying, don't talk about all these miracles and say that I'm the Son of God. And right here, whoever thou should confess me before men, I will confess. So he's saying, do it. So he's conflicting in his message, which, narcissists will have conflicting messages that always keep you on your toes. And then there's always a threat that comes with it. But whoever shall deny me before men, him I will deny to my Father. So this is intimidation. This is intimidation. Um, threats. It's threats against scrutiny in the cult leader. And then he that loveth a father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. And he that loveth a son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. You know what? I think something that would be fun is to put a little game together where we take quotes from Jesus and we take quotes from Kanye and we ask who said this.
Right.
Because right here it's like he that loves their dad or mom more than me is not worthy of me. That could be Kanye, but he is Yeezy, so. And then we go forward, well into the Chorazin, which is city, well into the Bethsaida, for if the mighty works which were done in you had been done entire in Sidon, they would have repented a long time ago in sackcloth and ashes. And this is what a narcissist will do. If you challenge a narcissist, they will threaten you, and they will try to make you feel like shit for even questioning. So Jesus has a lot of an ego. Jesus' ego as he's gotten a large following, has built up really, really big here. If you don't appreciate my children's magic show, if an individual is condemning people because of their lack of interest, that is highly suspect. It reminds me of that scene in Mommy Dearest where Joan Crawford is screaming at her adopted daughter, Christina, "Why can't you give me the respect that I'm entitled to, that any other person on the street would give me?" And of course, Christina says, "Because I'm not one of your fans." Hmm. At the time, Jesus answered and said, "I thank thee, Father, Lord of heaven and earth, because thou hast hid these things from the wise and the prudent and hast revealed them unto the babes." So Jesus starts his whole thing right now where and this, I'm not making any allusion to pedophilia here. So I'm not making a joke. I'm not making any insinuation of Jesus having an interest in children sexually or romantically. At this time, Jesus is starting to focus on children and also focusing on wanting people to be naive as children. There's a naivety that Jesus is going for here. And with this, it just seems as though Jesus is building into something where he wants gullible and credulous people who are desperate, who are vulnerable, who are risk of bad things because they don't have the resources to take care of themselves. He's looking at people to be utterly dependent upon him. All things delivered unto me of my Father, and no man knoweth the Son but the Father, neither knoweth any man the Father save the Son, and he to whomever the Son shall reveal him. So this is saying Jesus alone is the one who can help out. This is and let's see, and so Jesus is receiving questions from the Pharisees, and it's being said, "And if by Beelzebub cast out devils, by whom do your children cast them out? Therefore, they shall be your judges." And then Jesus is equivocating here. Jesus is being a smartass again. So the religious establishment is saying, "Okay, we're gonna take you seriously. So here, we have questions for you." And Jesus just gives smartass non-answers. That's what he's doing. He gives smartass non-answers. And that's just somebody who's obfuscating, obviously. And then he who is not with me is against me. He that gathereth not with me scattereth abroad. Whatever I say unto you, all manner of sin and blasphemy shall be forgiven unto men, but the blasphemy against the Holy Ghost shall not be forgiven unto men. Turn the other cheek notwithstanding. This is classical narcissism. Have you ever been in a relationship with a narcissist or suffered through a narcissist abuse? This is the telltale sign of it. Those who are not with me are against me. I can think of a current president of the United States who is using his office to target rivals and to target people that he feels have wronged him, including law firms, colleges, et cetera, individuals who put out books against him from his first administration, all the while saying that we need to have free speech.
Yeah, Christianity can be quite manipulative, huh?
Yep. Then certain of the scribes and the Pharisees answered, saying, "Master, we would see a sign from thee." But he answered and said unto them, "An evil and adulterous generation seeketh a sign." So Jesus is constantly out there performing magic tricks. And when you get the religious establishment, the upper echelons of the religious establishment saying, "Okay, well, let's see you do this." All of a sudden it's, wicked men seek signs. Like, but that's all you do. You do a children's magic show and you dupe people. Prove it to us. And then he says, no. And then he goes forward and he talks about this. He's putting himself up with Jonah. He's putting himself up with other people so he's a hype man of himself. So basically he's like Kanye. Kanye said he's like Jesus. He's Da Vinci. So Kanye claiming the mantle of Jesus is quite an apt metaphor. And then right here, while he yet talked to the people, and behold, his mother and his brethren stood without, desiring to speak with him. Then one said unto him, Behold, thy mother and thy brethren stand without, desiring to speak to thee. But he answered and said unto them that told him, Who is my mother, and who are my brethren? He was being a dick. He's being a dick. He's gotten too big for his britches. He's become an influencer. He has a huge following. And then his mom shows up and he's like, yeah, well, your mom's here to see you. Yeah, who's my mom? Who are my brothers? But all of you. It's kind of a dick thing to do. And you know what that would come from? That would come from a mom being abusive to the kid. So the kid is being abusive back. And I know that this is a sales pitch. I realize that. I realize that this is a sales pitch. But the way in which this is presenting Jesus is not making him look like a particularly loving or stable individual. And it was asked to him by his followers, why speakest thou unto them in parables? And he answered, said unto them, because it's given unto you to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven, but to them it is not given. And if you know anything about the way that cult leaders and manipulative people work, they will speak in confusing ways. So that way, as a group, if you claim you understand what they're talking about, then you're an insider. Like, yeah, I know what he's talking about. Sure, yeah. And then all of a sudden, what happens? This is coming up later because his followers are going to start doing the same thing. They're going to start claiming that they know what he's talking about, and then he's going to criticize them in front of other people. He's going to scold them, saying, "You don't know what you're talking about at all." So he's gaslighting these people, and he's abusing them. He's intimidating them. Therefore, I speak to them in parables, because they see not, and hearing hear not, neither do they understand. For this people's heart is waxed gross, and that means big, and their ears are dull of hearing, and their eyes they have closed, lest at any time they should see with their eyes and hear with their ears, and they should understand with their heart and should be converted, and I shall heal them. And with this, we have, in terms of persuasion, we have rational persuasion and we have relational persuasion. Rational persuasion is logos, it's using facts and figures. Relational persuasion is that which happens. I think we lost Justin Tucker. That which happens to be playing off of emotions, and this is really manipulative. It's brilliant in its manipulation. But blessed are your ears, for they see, and your eyes, for they see, your ears, for they hear. For verily I say unto you that many prophets and righteous men have desired to see those things which ye see, and not seen them, and to hear those things which ye hear, and have not heard them. This is love bombing. This is trying to boost the ego of the followers, leaving the impression that if at least you pretend to buy in and comprehend the bullshit, you have some earned prestige. But if you are an initiate, that you are better than the prestigious scholars because you get it. And this right here, this is absolute manipulation. Another parable he put forth to them, saying, the kingdom of heaven is likened unto a man who sowed a good seed in the field. But while men slept, his enemy came and sowed tares, that's weeds, among the wheat, and went his way. And if you get any inference from this, it plays into the fact that we fear loss more than we cherish gain. And what this is doing is this is prompting his people to be paranoid. It's prompting his people to be paranoid. And if you're paranoid, you're always on guard. And if you're on guard, you're going to be trying to accommodate an egotistical and narcissistic abuser. All these things spake Jesus into the multitude in parables, and without a parable spake he not unto them, that it might be fulfilled, which was spoken by the prophet, saying, I will open my mouth in parables. I will utter things which have been kept secret from the foundation of the world. And if Jesus was an unknown figure, the tales of his exploits were not made aware to the Western world, which is oversaturated with them, I would look at this and I would infer that Jesus is bullshitting right here. He's giving deliberately cryptic messages. He's talking about an us versus them dichotomy. He's keeping his people paranoid, which before it was turn the other cheek and love people. And now as he's getting power and he's starting to compete and get on the radar of people with more power, it just seems as though he's trying to gird his loins, so to speak. And therefore tares are gathered and burned in the fire, so shall it be in the end of the world. And this is likening it to a contamination of conflicting ideas and saying that if you seek and you analyze, contrary or alternative perspectives, that you are effectively planting the weeds in the field. And much like the weeds in the field at the end of the day that are being plucked away, you're going to be burned as well. And then Jesus goes on and he talks more. He babbles a lot more. And he basically talks about selfish people, and the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant man. So Jesus is effectively rambling at this point. Eric.
Not only is it that, it also is like very authoritarian
Mhm.
because you can't question the leader and you can't question his teaching, so you have no way out. And the only way out is to question him. So if you're taught not to question, then you're stuck, basically.
Yeah. And right here, Jesus saith unto them, have ye understood all these things? They say to him, yea, Lord. This makes it seem even more like a scam if you're not able to question the leader. Jesus seems to be giving license to be abusive to those who believe other ideas. And I think that's a big part of this too. If people believe something to the contrary, with this, it's that they are sinful, they are evil, and we're only preaching to the Jews, the lost sheep. This is insulating from criticism. This is insulating from scrutiny. And if we go down this route, it gives license to be abusive to people of other ideas, of other perspectives. And let's see. Okay. Perfect. And so my thought on it, it's to be abusive to those who question, because they will be punished for not buying into the celestial timeshare. And here, but Jesus said unto a prophet is not without honor, save in his own country and in his own house. So he goes back home and he starts preaching, and people are not buying into it. If he's traveling abroad, if he's traveling across the countryside and getting a bunch of people just coming to his shows, and then he comes back and tries to do a day job preaching, and people are not buying into it, they're just like, hey, aren't you Mary's son? Aren't you just some guy? And then, and they were offended in him. They pissed Jesus off because they're like, aren't you that Jesus guy who used to live here? Yeah, it's Jesus. It's that carpenter. Yeah. Hey, Jesus, that table you made, yeah, still broken. And Jesus said unto them, a prophet is not without honor, save in his own country and in his own house. Jesus is acting like a sour Jewish mother at this point, guilting. He's not only guilting his followers, he's guilting the people, and he's guilting the people from his hometown. This is like Jesus is a drama queen right there. And he did not many mighty works because of their unbelief. So Jesus is being a bit of a source, is being a bit of spoil sport. He's being a bit of a sore loser. He's not gonna help them because they're questioning him. So he's out there, he gets a bunch of fans, and like I said earlier about Mommy Dearest and Christina saying, because Jesus is getting annoyed with the people in his hometown where he's trying to have a day job as a regular rabbi. And he's just like, why can't you give me the respect that would be given to me by any stranger on the street? And the people in his hometown are acting like Christina and Mommy Dearest, because I'm not one of your fans. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, John the Baptist comes back in. There's nothing really about John the Baptist, except for he brought Jesus into this MLM. And now John the Baptist is getting his head cut off. And he's a minor figure. And I don't understand the relevance of bringing John the Baptist back because Jesus is now taking his place. Or maybe it's the relevance is just saying that John the Baptist is now out of the way. And if John the Baptist is out of the way, then this is maybe the relevance is there, but I'm not sure. And right here, this is the first time with loaves and fishes. There were 5,000 men right here. And like I said, it seems like Jesus is doing a road show. And with one leper, later comes a lot of lepers. He's trying out new material. This is the first time that Jesus is trying the loaves and fishes trick. So he tries this, and then later it happens again. More loaves and fishes. That becomes one of his signature tricks. And then that night he goes and he tries to perform a new trick for his followers. He walks on the water in front of his followers and he brings Peter out, and Peter starts sinking when Jesus says, "Oh, ye of little faith." But it's a little suspicious that it's Peter who's doing this. And Peter is one of Jesus's co-conspirators in this MLM nonsense. Because if you remember from a while ago, whose mother did Jesus supposedly heal? So Peter and Jesus are trying out a new trick in front of everybody. And that's what this just seems like right there. And when they were gone over, they went to the land of Gennesaret. And when the men of the place had knowledge of him, they sent out all in the country round about and brought him to the place that were all diseased. And it just seems like at this point, Jesus won't heal anybody unless there's a large crowd that's gathered. He can't be bothered to do his parlor tricks one-on-one, but he'll do it now when there are a lot of people, and besought him that they might only touch the hem of his garment, and as many as touched the hem were made perfectly whole. And how many touched the hem? It doesn't say. But at this point, it seems like this is more of a trick too, that he has some marks in the audience that he's getting his people to come up pretending to be sick or lepers, and everyone is getting wowed by this. You can look at old readings, you can look at faith healings, you can look at professional wrestling, or you can look at magic tricks where they bring up a quote unquote volunteer from the audience, and that volunteer from the audience is somebody who's in on the act. This is where I see this. And then down here, every plant which my heavenly Father has not planted shall be rooted up. Let him alone. They be blind leaders of the blind, and the blind lead the blind. They shall fall into the ditch. Saying that without my path, without my program, you're nothing. Anybody else is going to lead you astray. And, I can tell you, I've been giving like the Kitsugi Japanese art, talking about Buddha, talking about other paths. I can tell you someone who's more moral than Jesus in this. And you know which person that is? His name is LeVar Burton. Are you familiar with LeVar Burton? Is anyone in here familiar with LeVar Burton? He was in Roots. He was on Star Trek. He played Geordie LaForge. And he did a kid show. And that kid show was called Reading Rainbow. And the tagline, when he was recommending certain books by having kids give a book report, he said, the thing was always, but you don't have to take my word for it. I think there's a lot more morality in that than this. But this is malignancy. This is isolating people. This is isolating people. Then answered Peter unto him, declare unto us a parable. And Jesus said, are ye also yet without understanding? So now Jesus is getting a bit burnt out, it seems. He's getting a bit testy with his own people. And also, he's doing a trick that narcissists tend to do, which is he praises people And the moment someone says something trivial, all of a sudden he freaks out and he makes it a huge issue and he gets super abusive. Do not ye yet understand that whatsoever entereth in it the mouth goeth into the belly and is cast out into the drought? But those whose things which proceed out of the mouth come from the heart, and they defile the man. For out of the heart proceed evil things, murderers, adulterers, fornicators, thefts, false witness, blasphemies. These are the things which defile a man, but to eat with unwashing. Oh yeah. So this is something I forgot about this. So the Pharisees and the scribes, the priests, the rabbis, they're coming and they're saying, why do your disciples, your followers, just ignore their customs and the law? And also, why don't they wash their hands when they eat their bread? So Jesus is turning on Peter, and now he's getting angry and bitchy with the priests, and he's saying, "These things do not defile him." I said, are the things which defile a man, but to eat with unwashen hands defileth not a man." So all of a sudden, he gets super bitchy, saying, "Hey, you know, like God, if somebody were to say, 'Hey, wait, why do your followers not wash their hands before they eat?' And you're like, look, we have murderers, we have liars, we have rapists, we have bad hombres. Those are the bad things, not people not washing their hands. Those don't cause problems." It's like, wait, we weren't even talking about that. You're really goddamn sensitive. And then about a woman coming to him and her daughter was made whole from the very hour, babbling further. And then people, more faith healings. And people do these things today, and we know that they don't work. And he took the 7 loaves and fishes. Okay, so Jesus tried this. So he's doing one of his greatest hits. He's replicating one of his greatest hits. And then the Pharisees and Sadducees came, tempting, desired him when he showed them a sign from heaven. So he showed them a sign, and he said, "Listen, I'll show you a sign." And he gave the weather report, and he said, "Oh, ye hypocrites can discern the face of the sky, but you cannot discern the signs of the times." And then what he said is, he basically said, "I'll give you a sign, and if you're righteous, you'll see that it comes true. But if it doesn't come true, it means that you're not righteous." That's a bullshitter. I can recognize a bullshitter. Take heed and beware the leaven of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. So if it's literal about not eating the bread of the Pharisees, it's isolating people. But if it's figurative, it's even worse. It's causing people to distrust, to argue, to be angry with. And this contradicts the whole love thy neighbor and turn the other cheek thing. This is like, don't trust these people. As Jesus gains in power and prestige and the size of his audience, he becomes more paranoid. He becomes more abusive. He becomes more demanding. He gains a greater sense of entitlement. And, it strikes me that I've never read this before. And I've done political stuff and I've done advocacy work. And looking at things like religious liberty laws, it just seems like these people are mirroring the character of Jesus because they see themselves as above the law and yet privileged to a law that came before. That's what this seems like. And it just seems like there are parallels that individuals who find that they don't have to follow the established order of laws when it comes to civil liberties and civil rights. It seems as though these people just replicate that today. They replicate that today. Eric.
It actually talks about elsewhere in the Bible when you get into the epistles from Paul. He goes deep into about abandoning the law and not following or living by the law. He's all about the spirit of the law. So it gives a lot of free reign to interpretation about how we're meant to act after abandoning Jewish law. So I think that's a lot of where that those personality traits come from. We're having to disregard law because
And
that's a really deep tenet of Paul's teachings.
well, like entitlement, like the good old boys club. Like it's okay if I don't do it because I know what I'm doing, but you need to adhere to what the law says.
Yeah. You know what would have saved Jesus after the whole incident with the money changers? If after the centurions were after him, he just held up a package of Mentos and went, doesn't matter what comes fresh goes better with life, with Mentos fresh and full of life. Nothing gets to you, staying fresh, staying cool. Mentos. And then he goes and he commissions his disciples to be his apostles. And right here, he asks his disciples, saying, "Whom do men say that I am, Son of Man? I am a Son of Man am." And they said, "Some say that thou art John the Baptist. Some say Elias, which was another healer and prophet several centuries earlier in the same region. Jeremiah, or one of the prophets." He said unto them, "But whom say ye that I am?" And Shimon Peter answered and said, "Thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God." And Jesus answered and said unto him, "Blessed art thou, Simon Barjona, for flesh and blood hath not revealed it unto thee, but my Father which is in heaven. And I say also unto thee that thou art Peter, and upon this rock I shall build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. And I will give the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whoever thou shalt bind on earth shall be bound in heaven. And basically, like I said, this continues the aspect of the multi-level marketing essence of this, because he's just like, hey, now go start your own teams. And he's doing this big thing to show everyone, look, Peter's my second in command. He's been obeying me. He's been doing all this. If you obey me, you'll get good things too. And then changed his discharge to disciples that should tell no man that he was Jesus the Christ. Okay, so Jesus is doing it, and then go preach of me, and then don't do it. This sounds like what a narcissist does. You know,
Jesus was rewarding Peter as the ass kisser, seems to me.
Hey, the prodigal son was the ass kisser too. And there's a thing later about the debtor and not being an ass. It's like, what the fuck? From that time forth began Jesus to show up to his disciples how that they must go into Jerusalem and suffer many things of the elders of the chief priests and scribes and be killed and be raised again on the third day. And this is like he's already laying the groundwork for his big upcoming show where he's going to disappear the Statue of Liberty. But he turned and said, "Peter, get thee." Oh, so then Peter began to rebuke him, saying, "Be it far from thee, Lord, this shall not be unto thee." But then he turned and said unto Peter, "Get thee behind me, Satan. Thou art an offense unto me, for thou savorest not the things that be of God, but those be of men." So he's like praising Peter, and then all of a sudden Peter fucks up just slightly in his estimation. So then he's like, "Get thee behind me, Satan." It's like, Jesus Christ, this guy is a hair trigger. And then, for whomever will save his life shall lose it, and whoever shall lose his life for my sake shall find it. So now Jesus is asking a lot more. He's asking a lot more out of his people.
But that's only in accordance to the stories that the church selected to create their narrative. Like the Gospel of Judas kind of puts a whole different spin on it.
Mm. So, Chad, you came in a little bit later. The purpose of today is we're looking at the book of Matthew in particular, and we're looking at it not through the lens of being a Christian or an atheist. We're looking at it through the lens of the narrative itself, and does the narrative hold up? Is there consistency in the narrative? And if we had not been oversaturated by the Abrahamic religions in Western culture, how would we see this today if we were presented with this? It's a thought experiment, mainly because it would be impossible to exclude any influence of Christianity from our guys.
Right. No, that's a good point because, we're always looking at it through an extremely biased lens since we've been all immersed in it culturally. And some of us were brought up by families that were Christians or people who may have been former Christians. But definitely, and you don't get an outlook on the actual analysis of the actual story itself from an objective perspective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we're doing this on Easter, Jesus' birthday.
It's rather blasphemous.
Mhm.
And this hasn't been blasphemous already.
How David Copperfield could pull off a better magic trick than just faking his own death and hiding in a cave for 36 hours.
I was going to say, do you mean his second birthday?
Or his third breakfast, as per the hobbits in the Shire. Which, Jesus never went to minister to the hobbits in the Shire, so all of them wound up going to hell.
That's a whole other argument too.
I know. But the greatest miracle that David Copperfield ever pulled was getting Claudia Schiffer to date him. Oh my God. Big promises. Like who here has been in a job interview or something from multi-level marketing?
I have.
So this strikes me as this strikes me as being exactly what it's like. That there be some standing here which shall not taste death till they see the Son of Man coming from his kingdom. These right here are big promises. It's like you can have unlimited earning potential. You'll make six figures within the next year. You're going to build a team. And Jesus came and touched them and said, "Arise, be not afraid." And when they lifted up their eyes, they saw no man save Jesus only. So he invited a few of his followers. He invited a few of his followers to come and witness him having basically a spiritual talk show with Moses and who else was there? Blah 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 blah. Spake
Elisha.
Elijah,
Elias.
yeah. So he invited Peter, James, and John, which those are with the exception of Andrew, those are his original followers, and with the exception of Peter's brother Andrew, those are the original brothers that he got in early. And then he said, let's go up and have a retreat with Moses and Elias. And then all of a sudden they disappeared in a bolt of light, and God spake. Behold, a bright cloud overshadowed them, and behold, a voice out of the cloud has said, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Hear ye him." And when the disciples heard it, they fell on their face and were sore afraid. And Jesus came and touched them and said, "Arise and be not afraid." And when you had lifted up their eyes, they saw no man save Jesus only. And as they came down from the mountain, Jesus charged them, saying, "Tell no vision to no man until the Son of Man be risen again from the dead." So this is him setting up the next big trick he's going to do about raising from the dead. But, bringing in his closest associates and the guy he's basically getting to be his assistant manager, bringing them up there to have a secret meeting and say, "Look, God was there." Yeah, God was there. I think this is just, oh, Jesus. And when they come to the multitude, they came to him, a certain man kneeling down, saying, "Lord, have mercy on my son, for he is a lunatic and sore vexed. For oftentimes he falleth into the fire and often to the water. And I brought him to thy disciples. They could not cure him." Then Jesus answered and said, "O faithless and perverse generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I suffer you? Bring him hither to me." Jesus is getting a bit burnt out. He's becoming a diva. And Jesus rebuked the devil, and he departed out of him, and the child was cured from that very hour. Why could not we cast him out? So the disciples are saying, "Hey, how come we couldn't cast this demon out?" And this almost seems like Jesus coordinated with this guy to effectively say, "Hey, bring your kid to me, and then I'll cure him of his mental illness, so I can tell my followers, listen, hey, you didn't do it because you don't believe hard enough." This seems like he's increasingly manipulating his followers. He's further cementing his control on them. Why could we not cast him out? And Jesus said unto them, because of your unbelief. For verily I say unto you, if ye have faith as a grain of mustard seed, ye shall say unto this mountain, remove hence to yonder place, and it shall remove, and nothing shall be impossible to you. Oh my God.
I still have yet to see someone do that.
It's
I
always
know.
the boss. It's always the boss's kid who's got like that snotty attitude and a chip on his shoulder.
Oh God. Howbeit this kind goeth out, not out by prayer and fasting, and while they abode in Galilee, Jesus said to them, the Son of Man shall be betrayed into the hands of men, and they shall kill him, and on the third day he shall be raised again. And they were exceedingly sorry. So this seems like Jesus has been laying the seeds that he's going to do this trick.
Northwest, exit right.
Chad is getting direction from the
Yeah,
hereafter.
sorry, I didn't mute that.
You're
Sorry,
fine.
sorry.
Yeah. So here we go.
I have God as my co-pilot.
But Jesus, take the wheel.
It's called Garmin.
Your God says recalculating a lot more,
A lot.
Chad. So here we go. At the same time came the disciples unto Jesus, saying, who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? And Jesus called a little child unto him and set him in the midst of them and said, verily I say unto you, except ye be converted and become as little children, ye shall not enter the kingdom of heaven. So this is placing a premium on being gullible and being credulous. This is apparently there might have been some people around him who were expressing doubt, and he's just saying, "Hey, you gotta be like a little child, innocent, naive. But whoso shall offend one of these little ones which believe in me, it were better for him that a millstone were hanged around his neck, and that he were drowned in the depths of the sea." This is starting to become a little bit dicey, where Jesus is starting to say, come on, it's better that they kill themselves than offend one of my believers. Wherefore, if thy hand or thy foot, he said this earlier too, offend thee, cut them off and cast them away from me. This is being a bit over dramatic. Moreover, if thy brother shall trespass against thee, go and tell him his fault between thee and him alone. So what's this whole thing about not criticizing because you have your own problems? Jesus is getting a little bit of power. Something's telling me that his gang is probably robbing and stealing to pay for their exploits. And if he shall neglect to hear from them, verily I say unto you, shall be blind on earth, shall be bound in heaven. So basically, why would God give dominion to people on earth, especially just if they're of Jesus's team? And then, for where there are two or three are gathered together in my name, there I am in the midst of them. Jesus is becoming a bit much. And then, I like this. Finally, something I like. So likewise shall my heavenly Father do also to you. For if your hearts forgive not everyone his brother their trespasses. I like the idea of forgiveness, but Jesus isn't the only one who talks about forgiveness. Every major religion talks about forgiveness. And then here we go about marriage. So like I said earlier, where Jesus is going big into the divorce thing, it strikes me that this is a really sensitive topic for Jesus. And obviously, he has some issues, unresolved issues from when he was a kid, because he goes back into divorce. They say unto him, Why did Moses then command to give a writing of divorcement and to put her away? He saith to them, Moses, because of the hardness of your hearts, suffered you to put away your wives, and from the beginning it was not so. And looking at this, it's just like, well, if that's the law that Jesus said he came to fulfill, which allowed divorce, and Jesus is now like this big, heavily anti-divorce person, um, it just strikes me that this is a really sore spot for this guy. This guy has a really sore spot about divorce. And I say unto you, whoever shall put away his wife except it be for fornication, and shall marry another, committeth adultery. And whoso marrieth her, which is to be put away, doth commit adultery. This was not the thing in Judaism. So obviously, Mary cheating on Joseph and probably having a lot of fights when Jesus was growing up, like I said about that generational trauma, it seems evocative that this is something that has really affected Jesus, and he's dealing with the common trauma responses of fight, flight, or flee. Fight, flight, or freeze.
Wait, I'm not sure about that, because I'm not sure that Jesus, and I'm not sure that story about, coming from a virgin and all that would have been, that story would not have been opened and talked about when he was alive, because it wasn't created until 300 years after his death. At the Council of Nicaea, that's when they brought about Jesus's divinity, and that he was a god. So that her virginity or whatever would not have been a question when Jesus was alive.
Mm-hmm. Well, the fact is, he was never really alive. There's no evidence that the Jesus character was even based on a real person. But yeah, the whole virgin thing was basically a mistranslation of maiden. And then they just made his birth divine, and Mary being the sinless person who was conceived under immaculate conception. So that was all the church narrative, like a fake church narrative that was all made up and created, like hundreds of years later. But the first Jesus myth stories were like 70 years after his alleged the death of the Jesus myth character.
There you go again, Chad, ruining it all with facts, and this on Jesus' birthday. Christina.
What I do.
Hello, sorry I'm late. I did want to just kind of go in there. So with the divorce, what you couldn't do, there was no choice for a woman to marry and no choice for a woman to divorce. But a man, I think, could do it in both things.
Christina, there you go again. Putting out these wacky ideas that women have choice. Better be careful. You better not have read that. Better not have read that.
Oh yeah, no, I thought it in that day you were pretty much, bought with a couple of goats, probably at about 9 years old for a marriage.
Yeah. Yep. Christina, the thing is that today, because we're talking about Christianity, you're not allowed to ask a question. You can ask your husband Peter at home, and he can tell you. I just don't want you getting in your usual state of uppityness on this Jesus's birthday. Oh God! All right.
Wait, so when did Jesus write the U.S. Constitution?
Well, that was when he was on spring break, and that's when he also wrote the Book of Mormon.
That's right. And then it was afterwards.
Yeah,
he came and met the ancient Hebrews that became the Native Americans.
Yeah, like that's when Jesus went on spring break to Cabo. And then later, cool. Nice. All right. So we're continuing with this. Then there were brought unto him little children, and he should put his hands on them and pray, and the disciples rebuked him. But Jesus said, suffer the little children and forbid them not to come unto me, for such is the kingdom of heaven, and laid his hands on them and departed hence. And right then and there, we're talking about Jesus is trying to get his people to be utterly dependent upon him and trying to get them to act in the spirit of children, to be young, innocent, and naive. And now he's doing what a lot of cult leaders do, which is he's starting to get them while they're young. He's getting them while they're young. And behold, one came and said, good master, what good thing shall I do that I might have eternal life? And he said unto them, why callest me good? There is none good but one, that is God. But if thou wilt enter into life, keep the commandments. Jesus is a dick. That's all I'm getting from this narrative. Jesus is a dick. And then also right here, and like was said earlier about bringing in people to the flock and getting them to be utterly dependent upon him, because if you don't know where your next meal is coming from, if you don't have the resources to take care of yourself, you're going to develop some semblance of Stockholm syndrome with your abuser. And with this, about the whole rich man, camel, needle eye, yada, 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 and how Jesus said a rich man has to stick a needle through the eye of a camel just to get to heaven. But regardless, this is trying to eschew the idea of having your own resources. And I've been going over this. This is effectively where I have stopped. We were originally going to talk about the discrepancies between the Gospels. I just, we've been going on for 2 hours, and we'll put a stopping point there for the hermeneutical analysis of Scripture. We'll talk about our perspectives on this, and keep in mind, I put this together. I did a lot of talking, and I came up with a perspective that I've never heard of before, and it's coming from the idea of trauma-informed therapy. It's coming from the idea of looking at the text virginal and pure, as if we had culturally not been oversaturated by the narrative, by the expectations, by the vast history and canon of Christian and Abrahamic literature. And yeah, we made some jokes, we had some fun, but this is a good time because we could keep going. We could keep going, but we'll be here all day. And I don't know about you, but I'm not a Christian and I'm getting tired of reading Matthew. I need a break from Matthew, which, by the way, for those who came in later, Saint Matthew or Saint Matthias, he was killed because he converted the love interest of the king of Ethiopia to be a nun, and the king of Ethiopia tried to persuade him to get her to be with him, and he said, no, she's good. So effectively, Saint Matthew got his head chopped off by the sword of the king of Ethiopia for cock-blocking him. Lovely martyrs. Lovely martyrs. All right, so I just went over this perspective of generational trauma being evidenced in this narrative. I just went over this aspect of this seeming like a scam and a multi-level marketing pitch, which this kind of is. I just went over this from the perspective of looking at it from a reasoned eye. And we've been doing this effectively since 2:20 Pacific time. What are your thoughts on my thesis that Jesus was a prick, that Jesus was a con artist, and Jesus was a victim of generational trauma of having a narcissistic, codependent relationship with his mother in a family that fought over the fact that she cheated on her husband early on, and so that was his big thing against divorce. And he just replicated the abusive pattern of his mother, Mary, to his disciples, and got to the point that he needed to be the most important person because he was so wounded by his parental figure that he even rebuked and ignored her later. And like I said, this is not to advance a Christian agenda. This is not to stifle a Christian agenda. And of course, we've made the joke. Of course, this is not the birthday of Jesus of Nazareth, but it's fun to say that anytime we make fun of this, to say, how dare you say this on Jesus's birthday? So, what are your thoughts, Christina?
Well, I mean, there's a positive negative to that divorce thing because okay, so it if you're trying to say if it's a good thing for Jesus and he's going, it's kind of like divorcing a wife would be like divorcing a child, right? Like there's nothing a woman can do in society, so they're owned. But I mean, it might be a good thing to say don't divorce in the aspect that there's nothing else the woman could do. I mean, she'd probably be a prostitute and then die. So on that end, but Jesus was kind of a misogynist too. So I don't know.
Really quick. But thank you, Christina. Really quick. I put a lot of work into these, and right now I am between full-time gigs. I have a part-time gig teaching at a local community college. So if you're entertained, enlightened, or inspired either to hate or love what I do, and you want to help support my efforts because I'm going to be building and doing a lot more of this. I'm putting my Venmo and my Zelle in there. Chip in $5, $20, whatever you feel is good. I'm passing the hat. And if you like what we did, please consider chipping in. Otherwise, let's just keep going and we'll wrap up in like the next 15 minutes. Seamus.
My takeaway is that people back then are just as gullible as they are now. Now, technology, of course, is vastly different. If they were to come back here, everything we do take for granted would be seen as magic of the highest order. Jesus, it would look like the magic of Jesus, only ours is verified. And human nature doesn't change. As we've seen with the last election here in this country. And so that's all I want to say, because I don't want to take away from somebody else's time.
I'm glad you came.
Thank
And
you.
why should we expect human nature to change? We've been a distinct species for what? The last couple 100,000 years, and why would a couple of thousand years necessarily alter us that much just because we have a
Yeah.
whole host of toys?
Yes, you're right.
I mean, go read Tale of Genji, which is 1,000 years old. It's a Japanese handmade tale about life at the Heian court in Kyoto. So, yeah. All right. Eric, what are your thoughts?
Um, on just the whole presentation, or just
hmm
what the Texas thing.
Just
Honestly,
any thoughts from our discourse from today?
I've read the Book of Matthew like so many times when I was a Christian. I read through the Bible once when I was a Christian, and I spent so much time just learning from preachers and pastors and studying stuff. And I think that's part of what led me to atheism. I just got burned out from a lot of the studying and then just arguments that didn't make sense, and then a lot of the instilled shame and guilt I carried with me because of my upbringing. And I can see a lot of things you're talking about that you brought out. Um, and then I've listened to a lot of like critical scholarship from like less religious perspectives, and I've learned a lot of more background information about a lot of things. So for me, I think a lot of it was just honestly propaganda to sell a particular viewpoint, whatever origin it had. It's unascertainable. And, you know, based on evidence we have of the world right now, there's not much to really go by, considering the claims of divinity and all that stuff. So, you know, I think it was just really a guy that had a few tricks, could speak really well to people. Wherever he got those skills from, I don't know. Um, but there were many people like that during that time. He was just one of many
Hmm.
fake healers are going around at that time. If you read like ancient sources about other people who were alive at that time doing certain things the same as him, if you
Yeah,
read the
like
Josephus,
Josephus. Hmm.
yeah, he goes all into. There's a number of Jewish like messianic figures at that time that were preaching and trying to rally people against Rome, because Rome was really heavily oppressing the Judean area at that time. And the Jews had already a long history of like rebellious behavior against Roman occupation. Um, so somehow, all these things came together, and in somehow, some way, I think there was a lot of like Greco-Roman influence in this also. This narrative came out. I think it was probably some kind of way for people to rescue whatever identity they had from all the persecution and eventually just the decimation that Rome came and did to their community eventually with the sacking. There's two sackings actually, because it happened twice.
Hmm.
So that's why the Jews pretty much ended up in Europe, because the Romans, they destroyed their civilization pretty much. So the Jews were pretty much really scattered after that point. This is why there's no temple there anymore in Jerusalem and because that's the result of what the Romans did. So it's been like that for 2,000 years, and some people still want to hold on to that myth. Others wanted to reinvent it to save some kind of identity to help them, enmesh themselves into the greater pagan Greco-Roman society. So I just think it's a really it has a lot of influences that were dialoguing with each other that ended up creating this narrative and this belief system. So it's a lot of just political and psychological stuff, to be honest.
Thank you.
Well,
Go
personally,
for it, Carrie.
I'd like to say that, yeah, Christianity has been around for about 2,000 years, but obviously recently, like with the Dan Brown books, and there's a lot of investigation that has brought about, the doubt, the of the mystery of Jesus Christ, shall we say, and the doubt of his divinity and all that, and that's fine. That's good. I mean, I think he was just a highly enlightened man that walked the face of the earth, and that's fine. Here we are. Um, but 2,000 years later, given that it's obviously now come to light that Christianity for the past 2,000 years has really spread about dysfunction. And I think we've come to realize that really Christianity doesn't really serve us well. But obviously, some people I think are kind of lost about what to turn to. And that's okay. Eventually, they'll find their way. But I believe that Christianity really is on its way out, just simply because we've come to just simply it's lost its credibility, shall we say? And I believe that given that AI and um, robotics and obviously are bringing about a whole new industrial type of revolution that's scaring us all, but I do believe that we are also within a new renaissance, and we're going to make it out, and we're going to make it out better than we are now. So there you
Lovely.
go.
And Al, you came in a little bit later into the meeting. Do you have any thoughts based on the small sliver that you heard?
Um,
just to relate my experience, when I got to college, I had already come out as gay, but I realized I had never actually read the Bible. I was raised Mormon, so I had read the Mormon scriptures, but I realized I had not read the Bible. And so I had heard the Bible says this and the Bible says that. And so I was reading the Bible to find out for myself what it really said. And just sort of discovered that sometimes what the Bible says can be interpreted in different ways. And I found a scripture in Isaiah where Isaiah is commanded to walk naked, and God approves of Isaiah being naked. In other words, I could claim I was following Isaiah's example and be naked. Anyway, that's my comment.
You know, I'm glad that we did this. Hi, Mickey. Mickey, you came a little bit late. We're actually wrapping up in a few. Um, and this was something that we've never really done before. We haven't actually looked at scriptural text and spent an entire session going through it, reviewing it, possibly rebuking it, and looking at it deeply. We criticize it, we celebrate it, but when we study it, how often do we look at it just on its own terms rather through some other lens specific with an agenda? Was today useful? 3 questions for everyone, and then we'll head out. Next week, by the way, we're going to start doing this every Sunday again at 2. Next week, we're going to talk about the CCOT concentration camp and the illegal deportations that are occurring right now. But before we go, on the questions I have, A, was today useful? B, did you enjoy it? 3, did you learn something? And 4, would you like us to do this again? And unlike Jesus, you're not going to hurt my feelings.
I answered yes to all 4 because and I put it in the chat box too, because I wanted documentation. I didn't want to have to rely on translation or interpretations for the ages. You would have corroboration, unlike our friend Jesus.
Yep. Carrie, what did you think? Did you think this was useful? Did you think it was enjoyable? Did you learn something? And should we do this again?
Yes. And also next week I will have the link and whatever to my book too that I will give you.
Excellent.
Or whatever. We'll post it.
Excellent. Christina, same questions. Useful. Did you learn something? Did you enjoy it? Should we do it again?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Sorry I was late. But yeah, it was great.
Great. And Alan, Mickey, wish you could have been here longer than the meeting, but hey, we're just starting our Sunday things up again. And I recorded this. I'm going to put this on YouTube, and let's see how long it takes for someone to try to kill me because I have not hid my light under a bushel.
For me, it was educational, but reminded me of religious discussions where people go round and round about and really not end up resolving the issue. They just talk about it from different perspectives. And I like that you approach it unafraid, but I'm not sure I would want to repeat it.
Okay. Excellent. All right. So, Mickey, hope you're well. We're wrapping up now. This was fun. We'll see you guys on Saturday at Coffee and Conversation, and we will see you next Sunday. when we spend 2 hours, we're not going to go to 3. We'll spend 2 hours talking about the illegal deportations, Vilmar Abrego Garcia, other people who have been illegally deported, and CCOT, the gulag in San Salvador. Have a great day, everybody, and don't go knocking over a money changer table at a church. Bye.
Bye.
Oh yeah,
Bye.
and also, happy birthday, Jesus.
Of course.